Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Real Graps. I am the host, Joe Gierer, here on WYUR Iona University Radio on the YouTube channel. This is episode number 7, I believe, and we're starting to ramp up for the fall semester because we're getting to the end of not only the year in the wrestling calendar, we're getting to the end of everything. We're getting to the end of the year. We're getting to the end of the wrestling calendar. We're getting towards Survivor Series, and most importantly, for the year of 2025 in WWE. We're getting to the end of the legendary career, in-ring career at least, of John Cena. So a lot of stuff is happening right now. And last week we had a busy week. This week we also have a busy week because last Saturday was a special edition of Saturday night's main event, which I said could be the most impactful and important one yet. Did it turn out that way? I'm not sure. We're going to talk about it. But at the top of the show, to start us off, there were reports that I saw yesterday about next year's Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, which got a lot of backlash when it was announced. And I was one of the people who was not really on the bandwagon. I was not too happy that they were doing the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, mainly for the women, because they do have to wear, because of the culture and stuff, they usually have to wear like one pieces, full body suits when they go out there and perform. And if they're doing a women's rumble out there, it's hot. They're going to have to go out for over an hour. You might not see their very best if they're in that, like, it's going to be uncomfortable, essentially. It'd be uncomfortable. But regardless of that, I was not a fan of Saudi Arabia getting the Royal Rumble pay-per-view next year. And some reports that came out recently only further solidify that opinion, as however reliable these reports are. They said that Royal Rumble 2026 in Saudi Arabia could, quote, lack surprises, or you could not expect many surprises at all. And the reasons they gave were like, it's hard to hide the big surprise on an international flight, yada yada yada. It could also be that there's people who don't want to go to Saudi Arabia for the event. But regardless of what the reasons are, this is exhibit A as to why you don't move the Royal Rumble international. And I'm not saying you can't ever, but this is one of the reasons why. Because what do you mean? The Royal Rumble, one of the staples, the first staple of the year, every year, the most important show to set up the road to WrestleMania, is not going to have surprises on it. The Royal Rumble is a show that is built on surprise. When that clock ticks down and you get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, buzzer sounds, everybody's in anticipation. Who's going to come out next? Was it going to be a legend? Is it going to be a return? The surprise is one of the key, crucial elements of the Royal Rumble. Last year, you had Alexa Bliss return at the Royal Rumble. That was a big surprise. You had Joe Hendry show up in the middle of the Royal Rumble, and that was a surprise. He got a pop. There was a few big moments in the Royal Rumble last year that show that you have to have the element of surprise to have a successful, maybe not a successful Royal Rumble, but it just adds this extra layer of excitement on top of everything else going into WrestleMania. Surprises are a staple of the Royal Rumble show. And yeah, how are you going to have no surprises in a Royal Rumble match? I can't wrap my head around it. And I think it's just one of the most glaring reasons why the Royal Rumble cannot happen in a place. Saudi Arabia is not going to allow for surprises. And I was also worried about that in the first place. If they did run surprises, and maybe this is just being ignorant, I don't really know. But from what I've heard and what I've seen online, people explain in Saudi Arabia, obviously, because of the culture, they make the women, as I mentioned before, wear like big one piece body suits, cover everything up. On regular programming, they don't have that. So somebody asks, like, what happens then if they're not covered up on regular programming? What do the people in these countries do? And it said sometimes they could even skip the event. I don't know what goes on, but it's just Saudi Arabian crowds have not been the greatest if you go back these last few years. And that's just in terms of normal PLEs. They're not, very energetic, especially for the women's matches. Like I mentioned, they're not very up and ante about it. And I think it's just something I don't know what it is, but I think that the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia next year was a mistake in the first place. And if you're not going to have any surprises, like I said, the Royal Rumble is built on surprise, the element of surprise, the excitement, the anticipation for who can come out when the buzzer sounds. Like, it's just, It's like the primary staple of the show, and it's what makes it so fun. And if you're going to lose that in 2026, I think that is going to be a very big problem and probably a very big wake up call for WWE to not go forward doing stuff like this again. Not to say PLEs can't go international. You've seen France, you've seen great success having PLEs internationally. But when it comes to the Royal Rumble specifically, if you're not going to be able to keep under wraps these surprises and returns that you're going to, bring into the show, then you can't travel out with it because then it just loses, a big element of what makes the show so special. That's just my opinion. Had to get that off my chest to start the show, but now it's time to delve in to what happened this past week in WWE. And I want to say this show, we're going to kind of operate backwards because if you watch, you know that I'll usually start with NXT and I'll build my way chronologically to what happened throughout the week. We'll go NXT, usually Friday Night SmackDown, a PLE if it happened over the weekend, and then we'll touch on Monday Night Raw and preview what's to come at the end. Predict a PLE if that's coming up towards the end of the week. But this week, I felt like doing things a little different. Saturday night's main event was obviously the most important thing to happen this past week in WWE. So why not talk about that first? So we're going to be talking about Saturday night's main event to start this show, followed by SmackDown and Raw, and then we'll touch on NXT towards the end. Their follow-up show to Halloween Havoc last week and what's to come for them tonight and maybe in the future. I don't know. But Saturday night's main event. I said last week, as I mentioned before, that it could end up being the most pivotal and important Saturday night's main event that WWE has put on recently since they brought it back. Because a lot of people rubbed it off as a nothing show when they brought it back, and it's slowly become more important. And I thought this one was going to be the most important. And I wasn't sure what was going to open the show because I had in my mind, as I said last week, I thought that Drew McIntyre was finally going to get over, and I thought he was going to win the WWE Championship, which he's long deserved, by the way. It's been something that's very overdue for a guy of his stature. He's done great character work. He's done great in-ring work. He was almost crowned in September. That was the report. So I thought for sure Drew McIntyre was getting the championship this Saturday at Saturday night's main event. And unfortunately, that is not what happened. I was 0 for 1 on predictions to start. And I kind of knew I was once I figured out that Cody and Drew were opening the show. Because if you were going to do the grand dethroning of QB1, Cody Rhodes, you were going to give the belt to Drew McIntyre, a moment that everybody has been clamoring and waiting for years. It would happen at the end of the show. And once I saw that Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre were opening the show, I just knew it was wraps, and I knew the internet would be up in flames, and that is exactly what happened. Cody Rhodes, going into the matchup, if you recall last SmackDown, actually, we can't recall last SmackDown because I haven't talked about it yet, but what happened is there was a contract signing between Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre. There was, of course, a brawl. We say on this show all the time, if there's a contract signing, there's going to be a brawl. There's going to be a fight. But the most important takeaway from that contract signing was that Drew McIntyre got rid of Champion's Advantage. He convinced Cody Rhodes to dump it, and that meaning if Cody Rhodes gets counted out or if Cody Rhodes gets disqualified, usually the champion will retain the belt but lose the match. But in this instance, he got it removed, meaning if Cody Rhodes was to get himself disqualified or get himself counted out, he would lose the WWE Championship to Drew McIntyre. And I thought that stipulation did it. You've seen this change in Cody Rhodes' character recently, going back a couple of weeks, was the primary reason that Drew McIntyre wanted this clause in the contract, because Cody ended a WWE Championship match with him by hitting him with the title. And you've seen this slow change in Cody Rhodes' character, which did show up on Saturday. Cody did end up cheating in the match and using the WWE Championship belt to his advantage. But the issue is the referee was distracted, or the referee was not distracted. He was hurt and he was down, and he missed the entire ordeal. Drew McIntyre, that match was fun. And a lot of people said they thought it was the worst match of the night. I thought the night overall was done particularly, like, it was done well. I'll get there. But this match to be the worst of the night, I don't think so. I actually think it was a very good match. Drew McIntyre played that psychological warfare part perfectly. I thought the match was good. It was performed extremely well. And it was just the ending that people were upset about. Because like I mentioned, Cody Rhodes, he does have a lot of haters. I'm not saying I'm one, but he does have a lot of haters. And there's a lot of people who are big fans of Drew that have wanted to see Drew back at the top of the mountain for a long time now. And that ending, which I will admit was kind of underwhelming. Cody cheated, ref missed it, hit a DDT on the belt, hit into a crossroads, retained the WWE Championship. I'm sure you're going to see Drew McIntyre clamoring and upset and angry and vile and raged on Friday Night SmackDown this week. But match itself was good. I don't really have anything to say. I think the wrong guy won, if I do say so myself. I believe Cody Rhodes is probably holding on to this championship till WrestleMania or beyond. I don't know if there's going to be a character change in there, if he's going to turn heel, if he's going to stay face, because he is the most popular baby face in the company right now, and he's the most reliable one they have. So do they want to abandon that and turn him heel? Who fills that void as the primary baby face in the company? I don't know exactly which routes they're going, but I thought Drew McIntyre was going to win. Triple H did not pull the trigger on him yet again. It enraged a lot of people online. I'm not a hater of Cody Rhodes. I think he does good work. So I'm fine with him being my WWE champion. But I would be lying to you if I said that I didn't want Drew McIntyre to win that match. I did. And I thought it would have been really fun to move forward with Drew McIntyre as a WWE champion. But we'll get there. You have to hold out faith. I know there's a lot of guys like LA Knight and Drew McIntyre that have had these problems and these woes with booking for a while now in terms of them in the world title picture when the fans really want to see them in it. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Cody Rhodes retained. That was my first wrong prediction of the night. And that's how we opened the night. We opened with the WWE Championship match. It set the pace. It set the standard for the show. Following was the Women's WWE Championship match, that between Jade Cargill, who's newly heel, and Tiffany Stratton. There was a bit of an altercation on SmackDown the night before where you could see that Tiffany was obviously hurt. Her knee was bandaged up. It was bruised, and she couldn't really move on it that well. She tried to attack Jade, got blocked by security, kind of gave out on her. So it was leading into that match that Tiffany was hurt. And that set the stage for her to lose the championship, which I'm sure a lot of people, if not all people, about 95% probably thought that Tiffany Stratton was going to lose that match. And for the 5% that were hopeful that she didn't or were not expecting her to, well, she did. She lost championship. She had the third longest reign in Women's World Championship history, I believe. It was like 302, 303 days, something like that. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. But Jade Cargill, very big deal coming into WWE back in 2023, introduced in a very loud way at the Royal Rumble in 2024. Finally made her presence known around WrestleMania season that year and has been a staple of programming ever since, besides the fact that she was taken out for a while and returned big at Elimination Chamber. Jade Cargill has always had that superstar presentation, and it was not until this year that she was finally introduced into a world title picture with Tiffany Stratton, that being off her win of Queen of the Ring and her challenge at SummerSlam for the belt. She lost that one, and she found herself in at least one or two more women's championship matches down the line that she also lost. And a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown, she turned against Tiffany Stratton and said that power, not patience, is rewarded. And it was time she went and took what's hers. She had that opportunity at Saturday night's main event and capitalized on it. WWE finally pulled the trigger on her. They put the women's WWE Championship on Jade Cargill. And as for the match itself, Jade completely steamrolled the injured Tiffany to win that championship. And me personally, I thought the match was done perfectly. I think it's exactly with the route they were taking. It was exactly the match that should have happened, because if Tiffany's injured and she goes out there and puts up this hard fought battle against Jade, who's supposed to be this world beater now that she's a heel character, it just does more damage than help to her, especially if she wins the title, because she had this close match with an injured Tiffany. But for her to go out there and take advantage, and Tiffany got her shots in, not that many, but she got a couple in. But for Jade to go out there and just wreck her, just destroy her and win the championship against the champion who's been dominant all year long, except for the Crown Jewel Championship match, it is the perfect booking to have yourself a top heel and a dominant champion now going forward on SmackDown in the women's division. And as for Tiffany, you could argue that she was done dirty because she had this long title reign, and to have it end in a match where she was just essentially squashed it's a little questionable, because you never want to have a title reign that was going well end on such a bad note. And this is an extreme example, but of course, Kofi Kingston's reign back in 2019, when it ended in just 6 seconds against Brock Lesnar, that got a lot of backlash because they say he deserved better Did Tiffany deserve a better end to her title reign? Some could say yes, some could say no, but the bottom line is for the storyline that they were going with, the match was perfect. It was a great way to crown Jade Cargill, a nice way to take the belt off Tiffany. Didn't make her look weak. She was injured going into the matchup, and a lot of her moveset is built on her movement, her athleticism. And if you don't have a knee, you can't exactly utilize that to your best of your ability. So I thought WWE did a great job in finally putting the championship on Jade Cargill. And I think she should have a good reign with it as a heel because it's been since Io Sky. No, I'm lying. It's been since Nia Jax that we've seen a heel as champion. But if you go back and remember, Nia Jax had a pretty good reign with the championship, having faces come at her and having that constant tension with Tiffany Stratton and the Money in the Bank briefcase. She did good work. And I think I've always said it, and I'll say it again. Heel champions in professional wrestling work significantly better than when you have face champions. Babyface characters are better in the chase. Heel characters are better on top because when they're holding the championships and you have the good guy chasing up on them, kind of like the underdog, not to the extent of Sami Zayn, but when you have the babyface chasing the heel, it's a lot better when you have the heel chasing the babyface. I think most people feel that way. That's how I feel. It's just an opinion. It's not fact. Nothing is concrete about what I just said, but that's just my opinion. So I'm very excited to see what Jade does with the championship. It's about time they put it on her. They've been teasing it for a while. You thought Tiffany Stratton's reign was going to end a lot longer or a lot further back, but she carried that belt for a really long time. She carried it well to the best of her ability. So great reign for Tiffany. I'm looking forward to what Jade has to do. And they say that Tiffany could be taking a few weeks off following her title loss, which could be the case, could not. I don't really know. I guess we'll find out on Friday if she's there or not, because if Tiffany Stratton's healthy, she's on the show every week. So we'll find out soon enough. But Jade Cargill is the first title change of the night. She was the first new champion of the night. I won't say title change because the other one was not technically a change, but Jade Cargill, WWE Women's Champion, alongside her counterpart on Raw as the Women's World Champion, Stephanie Vucker, moving forward. For the IC title, we had a triple threat match. That was Penta versus Rusev versus Dominic Mysterio. That was announced, last week on Monday night for Saturday. And the match itself was very good again. Those guys have great chemistry together. I really enjoyed what they did with that match. There's a few good moments in it. I have to bring it up. Rusev, it's gone viral. Rusev just scared the daylights out of a kid at ringside, and it was very funny because he just jumped at him, and the kid literally audibly just screamed, and it was a very funny moment. But for the wrestling itself, the match was good, but the important part was the ending of it. And towards the end, Dominic forgot there was no DQs in the match. He tried to pull the Eddie Guerrero spot on Rusev and inadvertently just gave him a chair to use against him, which was another funny moment. But the match itself at the end was the very important part. Rusev had locked in the accolade on Penta, and the bell rang as if there was a new Intercontinental Champion. Rusev was happy, finally. First time he's been happy the entire time since he's came back to WWE in April. And he's celebrating, telling the ref to raise his hand. I'm the new champion, but it wasn't him. It was actually Dirty Dom finding a new way to legally bend the rules. Because as we said last week, Dominic Mysterio is not a cheater. He's never cheated in his life. And that I will stand by and defend till I die. He's never cheated. I've never seen it. But this time he just legally, strategically, ingeniously maneuvered the rule. He maneuvered the rules to get himself the advantage. He rung the bell, got Rusev off the choke when Penta was about to tap. Rusev, of course, was not very happy about it. He'd been outwitted by the genius that is Dirty Dominic Mysterio. Penta ended up picking up the hammer in the ring, swung it on Dom, misfired, hit Rusev. Dom threw Penta out of the ring, hit a frog splash, took advantage to win the match and retain championship. I thought he was going to retain. I said he was going to retain. I didn't really think there was any doubt in my mind, and that's because of some reports coming up about John Cena's future endeavors, where it was reported that he might be facing Dominic for the IC title either at Survivor Series or he's going to be facing him in his last match as Saturday night's main event. That was the primary reason I thought Dominic was not losing that championship on Saturday. And he didn't lose it, but it might not be necessarily the reason for John Cena, because there's some stuff that unfolded on Monday Night Raw last night that could be a potential Survivor Series match. I'm not sure which way they're going with that. Again, I don't know what's in the minds of WWE Creative, but Dominic Mysterio is still the Intercontinental Champion, and I believe in my heart of hearts that this was the right call because Dominic has had himself an actually pretty good reign with the title. When he won it, I think people had high hopes that he was finally getting a championship reign. And this reign, in my opinion, has lived up to expectation because he's defending the championship. He's having entertaining segments. His matches are good. So I think Dominic is having himself a really, really good run with his first real main roster championship, singles championship, that being the Intercontinental Championship. And not to mention, he is the double champion. He has the AAA Mega Campeon. So Dominic is in a very good spot right now. He won his match. The most important thing, in my opinion, actually, I'll leave it for the end. Punk in our main event, Jey Uso and Punk. A lot of people are getting on this match. There was some botches, which you'd have to expect in a match with Jey Uso, as badly as we have to say it. But a friend and I were talking about this. We actually kind of liked it in a way towards the end because the match was slow. But it seemed more like a fight. And I do agree. I like the technical wrestling, the choreographed wrestling, the very high flying activities and all that stuff. But sometimes when they get in there, it's a reason I like Sheamus so much. And I'm not comparing Sheamus to what happened on Saturday. But when you just get in there and have a fight, you just brawl. That's what it felt like towards the end of that Jey Uso and Punk match. And there were several close calls where it felt like Jey was going to win. It felt like Punk was going to win. I don't know if Jey had an audible and pulled the sleeper on Punk towards the end because Punk dropped him unintentionally or if it was the intentional spot and that's what was supposed to happen. But either way, I think that match was better than what the internet is giving it credit for. And ultimately, the right winner, in my opinion, made history. He became the new WWE World Heavyweight Champion. That was CM Punk, his sixth World Heavyweight Championship in WWE, his sixth World Championship in WWE. As for Jey, I think this will give more depth to his character because Jey is obsessing and going crazy in his own mind. Like, I need that World Championship back. Now that he's had it once, he can't go without it. And I think losing to CM Punk is probably going to make him just lose it more at some point, whenever that may be. But Jey Uso, you're seeing this depth to his character finally build. And I think that winning the championship would have done him a lot more harm with this character than losing. So I think CM Punk is the right man to fill in for Seth Rollins after he vacated. I'm looking forward to the reign that Punk is going to have. It should be fun, should be good. We shall see. But overall, the match was better than I think people are giving it credit for. They had a fight. It was a good match. It was fun. But CM Punk, new World Heavyweight Champion. That was it for matches. Now, perhaps the most important thing at this point to come from Saturday night's main event. They announced that starting next week in Boston, and the draw started last night on Monday Night Raw, there will be a 16-man tournament to determine John Cena's final opponent. John Cena, in a video package, said that who does he want to face on his last match? And he claims that his answer has always been the same. He's always wanted to face somebody who is willing to take the same opportunity that he gave himself back in 2005 or 4 or 3, whatever it was. I don't remember the year. I don't think I was alive yet. I might not have been, but whatever year it was that John Cena came out and took the open challenge against Kurt Angle, he wants to give somebody the same opportunity. Whoever's earned the right to face him in his last match will be the person that faces him at Saturday night's main event in December next month. And I think that this is the perfect way to get his last opponent because there's really no build. There's no build that's going to happen because John Cena is coming to Raw next week. He's coming to the Raw following at MSG, which I'm going to be at most likely. He's going to be at Survivor Series. And then from Survivor Series to Saturday night's main event, he has no dates. So it's from that point until his last match, he's not going to show up. So how can you really build a feud or how can you build to his last match if he's not going to be there? It's a bit of a hard challenge. And I think that this 16-man tournament, is the perfect way to determine an opponent and give it some story because you throw in all the options. And by all the options, I mean all the options because they said it could be anyone involved. It could be Monday Night Raw participants. It could be people from SmackDown. There will be people from NXT. And he claimed there could be people that don't even work here. What does that mean? I don't even know. Does that mean AAA? Does that mean TNA? Does that mean they'll go to the depths that we never thought they'd go to and pull people in from like AEW if they can? I have no idea what that means. But in my perfect world, and I've seen plenty of names thrown around, you had those rumors about Edge coming back and facing Cena. You had rumors of Chris Jericho coming back and facing Cena. You had rumors of him facing another guy like Randy Orton or someone like one of those guys. There's also been rumors that he could face Dirty Dom and have Dom go over in his last match. There's so many possibilities. I think now that they've announced this tournament, there's a possibility you could put over a real young guy coming up, like maybe an Obafemi. I think we'll probably see Obafemi in the tournament as his main roster debut. He could go to the finals. There's been a big rumor that Gunther will face John Cena. Do I think Gunther needs to be put over by John Cena? No. But that was another rumor, and he's probably going to be in this tournament. So, in my perfect world, John Cena faces Dominic Mysterio at Survivor Series for the Intercontinental Championship and beats him and wins himself the Intercontinental Championship. He's never competed for it. He's never held it. It is the last belt he needs to be a Grand Slam champion. That's the one thing John Cena has never accomplished in the WWE. He's done everything else multiple times except win the Intercontinental Championship. So him beating Dominic at Survivor Series is my ideal world. And somehow, some way, Sheamus is in the tournament, wins the tournament, and faces John Cena, the renewal of an old rivalry. They face off for the Intercontinental Championship at Saturday night's main event. For John Cena's last match, Sheamus goes over. Sheamus wins his Grand Slam championship, which he's been chasing for God knows how long. I feel like it's a perfect ending to the story. John Cena gets the Grand Slam championship, and in his last match, Sheamus goes over and gets his Grand Slam championship. That's me, personally. That's what I want to see happen. Will it happen? I don't know, but we're on the right path. As of Monday Night Raw last night, we are on the right path to that happening. That was it for Saturday night's main event. I think the show overall was pretty good. I was a fan. I think it did what it had to do. If I could change anything, I would have had Cody Rhodes lose and give the belt to Drew McIntyre to make things a little bit more interesting. But everything else that happened on the show, I thought was going to happen, and I think it was the right call, in my opinion. Now, SmackDown on Friday before Saturday night, as it did not relate to Saturday night's main event. The MFTs are always prominent on the show. There was a backstage segment where R-Truth was Santa Claus because, Friday was not Halloween. It was Christmas in the R-Truth calendar. But Solo came up. He pressed Motor City Machine Guns and got the MFTs a match because obviously they were a little bit angry that the Motor City Machine Guns had brought up their tag title win a year prior against what was at that time the Bloodline. And that got them a match a year after it happened the first time. And in this one, the MFTs defeated Motor City, Solo distracted, and there was an interference. And the MFTs, of course, followed up after the match. And Shinsuke, Rey Fenix came out to help. They both got laid out. The MFTs look like a force to be reckoned with. Where are the Wyatt Six? Where's that feud going to go? I don't know. I haven't seen the Wyatt Six on SmackDown. So I don't know where they're going with that. We'll just have to see. But the MFTs are still running rampant and causing havoc on SmackDown. As for last week's US Open Challenge, I was so hopeful. I was getting greedy about it because Ilya Dragunov came out and invited out whoever wants to challenge him. Fraxium both came out, Nathan Frazier and Gierer. So it looked like Nathan Frazier was going to be the one accepting the challenge, which goes back a week prior. And then Tommaso Ciampa came out, stormed past him, elbowed Fraxium out of the way, and called his shot at the U.S. Championship, which, again, that's also going to be a great match, and it goes back to what happened a week prior. Ilya gave Frazier the match, said he was out here first, and said that Tommaso Ciampa is not going to get rewarded for the way that he was acting. I thought for sure that meant that Ciampa was going to get involved in the match, and it was not going to be clean. That was not the case. Ilya Dragunov went out and had a barn burner with Nate Frazier. He put on a great show. Both men. It was a phenomenal match, probably match of the night. It usually is when Ilya's out there. And to get him in a match with somebody like Nathan Frazier, who really showed out in that match. They had a phenomenal one. Ilya ended up winning, retaining the title in a thriller. That's what Michael Cole said, and I have to agree with that because that was an incredible match. Both men showed up and showed out. And after the match, it was when Ciampa came out. He attacked Frazier from behind, and then there was a brawl between DIY, Fraxium, and Ilya into the backstage area. But when Tommaso Ciampa came out and laid out Nate Frazier, I really thought for a second, they went to commercial. I thought for a second they were going to have Ilya run double duty and have a match with Ciampa at the same time. That would have been incredible. That is exactly what I was hoping for when they went to commercial. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. I think I was being a little greedy. You can't ask guys to just go out there and have multiple matches in one night. But I do have to say, if Ilya is going to face Tommaso Ciampa next or at some point, that match is also going to be a barn burner. I was hoping he got a little 2-for-1 in one night, but that's not what happened. And after that brawl backstage, Tama Tonga faced off with Ilya, so maybe that is a future answer to his open challenge. Do I think Tama Tonga would win the belt? No, but should be a good match. Any match, like I said, with Ilya Dragunov in it is usually a good match. This week's edition of Carmelo Hayes and The Miz. The Miz tried to help Kit Wilson actually beat Carmelo Hayes in the match that they had. Kit Wilson really was impressive in that match, by the way. He came out and put on a better performance than I think anybody had imagined he was going to. And The Miz tried to help him win. Melo still got it done anyways, finished the fight. And then The Miz laid out Carmelo the skull-crushing finale and said, it's not over till I say it's over. So that feud, which is yet to have a match, and we're about a month in, it's a little surprising, but that match is going to happen probably next week because there's nothing announced for this week. So maybe on Friday this week, maybe next week, I don't know, but The Miz and Melo are not done with one another. As for the tag team champions, that being Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss, they said on Friday they welcome a match with the Kabuki Warriors after what happened the previous Monday Night Raw at the end of the show when the Kabuki Warriors went haywire and attacked everybody and stood tall to finish. And Alexa Bliss was going into a match with Nia Jax that night. And in that match, Charlotte distracted Nia in the corner and allowed Alexa to hit her with a dropkick, tripper, and pinner for the win. So a little momentum going into a potential match with the Kabuki Warriors for tag team championships for Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. Sami Zayn was announced to be not cleared. He wanted to help Motor City against the MFTs in their match. That didn't happen, so I don't know when Sami Zayn will be back in the ring to compete. Now, primary moment from Friday Night SmackDown, in my opinion. Nick Aldis said he had to do his due diligence out of his responsibility. He had to ask Cody, did you have anything to do with the attack on Jacob Fatu? And Cody said no. He denied responsibility. He said, Nick, I understand you're doing your job. It was not me. I had nothing to do with it. I'm very sorry about what happened. Simple answer. But the fact it's shown on TV, and there's been some theories and some, hypotheses that Cody was the one that attacked Jacob, and that's just part of his character change because you've seen it. Like I mentioned at Saturday Night's Main Event, he cheated. And is it possible that Cody did it? Yes. Did he do it? I don't know. What would be the reason that Cody did it? Did he just want to eliminate Jacob as a threat because he saw him as a legitimate threat to the championship? I don't know. But they highlighted it as part of the show. Cody denied responsibility. We'll see where that takes us into the future. Rey Fenix, as I mentioned, he challenged Talatanga, the big dude, Hikuleo, to a match next week. That was before he got laid out by the MFTs, and he slapped the taste out of his mouth in the backstage while standing on like a chair or a box. It was funny. But Rey Fenix and Talatanga will face off this Friday. Damian Priest said that it is now personal what's going on with Aleister Black, and he will get his hands on him when he least expected because Damian Priest wants to have the element of surprise on his side. So Black and Priest are always, at this point, going to be interlinked to one another in one way or another. This feud is never ending, and it is good. I'm enjoying it. So they can continue on with that as long as they want. Julia and Kiana James were in the ear of Tiffany Stratton in the backstage. And also, Chelsea Green complained, as she usually does. But this time it actually worked because Julia accepted to defend the U.S. Championship against her this Friday on SmackDown. And there was a bit of a scare at the end of that segment because, of course, it was Halloween. And, of course, on Halloween, I thought we'd see the Wyatt Six. We didn't, but we did see Nikki Cross in a bit of a jump scare. It was a funny moment. Chelsea Green and Alba Fire were very terrified of who showed up on them randomly, that being Nikki Cross. Nikki Cross going to get into the U.S. title picture now? I have no idea. Probably not. It was just a Halloween thing, but she very much scared them. And the last thing that happened from Friday Night SmackDown, they had a mascot match. It was in Utah. Salt Lake City over the weekend, and there was an upcoming ranked matchup between Utah and Cincinnati in football. And so before the show started, and they highlighted it during the show, Swoop, who's Utah's mascot, faced the Bearcat, who's Cincinnati's mascot, in a match. They went back and forth, and it was ultimately Utah's mascot, Swoop, picked up the win. It was a nice, funny moment. It was so silly, and it's that kind of stuff it's fun for an audience, especially before a show and before a big ranked football matchup. So it was it was a fun thing that they did on SmackDown. It doesn't need too much attention, but it was fun. I will be right back now after this ad break to talk about Monday Night Raw. Go check out the Ionian if you haven't yet. Wonderful newspaper. Now, Monday Night Raw last night. The new champ, of course, had to open the show, that being CM Punk. Came out, gave his thanks, promised to be a fighting champion, which is something you love to hear as a wrestling fan. And he called out many names for this championship. He called out Braun Breaker, of course. Called out Bronson Reed, of course, that counterpart in the Vision. He called out AJ Styles, who he said he felt has deserved it. Somebody he said he didn't think deserves it, but he will call out is Dominic Mysterio, as he is a double champ. One nice shout he gave was JD McDonough, who got himself a big singles win against Sheamus. JD is a phenomenal wrestler, and it was a bit surprising to hear CM Punk mention him in a world title conversation, but it was nice to hear because of his caliber of wrestler. Another person who is a great wrestler that CM Punk threw his name out of, Finn Balor, he said he was targeting. And that's something that the fan base likes to hear, is that somebody who everybody's wanted to get some sort of something for the longest time. And we've talked about it this entire year. We thought it was coming. It didn't come. Still hasn't come. Maybe it'll come at some point in the future. CM Punk mentioned Finn Balor's name. He also mentioned Sheamus as somebody he'd like to go against. And last but not least, he said if John Cena wants a crack at an 18th World Championship before he's gone, just say the word and it is his. He can want some. He can come and get some. But that is not what happened. Logan Paul returned for the first time since Clash in Paris to confront CM Punk and say he's earned a shot at the title, which of course he hasn't. And it was much to the displeasure of Punk. He was screaming no and telling him to go over to SmackDown and challenge Ilya Dragunov for the open challenge. A lot of people were angry about Logan Paul coming back in this way. Me, for one, I'm not a person that hates Logan Paul in wrestling. I think he's actually fairly good in wrestling, but I don't think he should be thrust into the world title picture every single time he returns. He did it against Jey Uso back in, May, and he did it again now with CM Punk. And CM Punk has so many other options that he could be exploring in this world title reign. So I don't think that Logan Paul should be in this reign. The Vision interrupted the interrupter, that being Logan Paul, and Heyman dropped some heat down the ramp as he always does. Braun said the dog's not waiting anymore. Heyman convinced him to wait a few weeks, and that was over with. It was time to go get what was his. And it seemed Logan had turned a little bit like more face towards the end of the segment because he got pushed to the ground trying to abandon Punk and came back to help him. And he pretty much sacrificed himself for CM Punk. He got himself destroyed, and Punk ran off the Vision with a chair. And I thought it was going to lead to like a Punk and Logan match versus the Vision at the end of the show. It's not what happened. All men were involved, but we'll get there. Roxanne Perez pinned Nikki Bella, I think last week it was. And they set up a tag match for this week. And Roxanne Perez pinned Nikki Bella again to win the tag team match. Her and Raquel beat Women's World Champion Stephanie Vaquer and the Hall of Famer Nikki Bella. And that ultimately got Raquel a title match against Stephanie Vaquer, which was to be announced later in the show. As for what's going on with Jey Uso gave CM Punk his credit backstage and offered to help him fight division tonight on Monday Night Raw. So they were to make that tag match that I thought would somehow be Logan Paul. It went to Jey Uso, and he and Punk were to face division later on that night. It seems Jey Uso was getting back in the right mind, and it seemed like he was getting back to that old Jey Uso that we once knew. Penta faced El Grande Americano, took advantage of his loaded mask, and escaped afterwards from further trouble. He beat him. Now, one of the bigger things to happen from the show, Daddy's home, I say, because Dominic got on the mic, and it was a big moment because he was not getting booed. He was not getting booed. The crowd was loving him. They were listening to everything he has to say, as they finally should. He's the great. No, I'm joking. But Dominic wasn't getting booed. And he said nobody was going to tell him otherwise, that he was not the greatest luchador and champion on the planet. And Rey Mysterio, who we haven't seen on WWE programming since April, the day before WrestleMania when he got hurt, he was supposed to face El Grande Americano. But he returned and challenged Dominic's claim for greatest luchador of all time. He mentioned Eddie Guerrero. Dominic told him, rightfully so, keep my father's name out of your mouth, because Rey was being very disrespectful to the obvious biological father of Dominic, that being the late, great Eddie Guerrero. And Dom said Rey's jealous, and it could be the case. He said he's finally made the Mysterio name relevant and has surpassed everything Rey's already done, which Rey's never been AAA Mega Champion, if I do say so myself. But Rey told Dom that as long as he's here, he'll never be the king of the luchadors. He'll never be the greatest Mysterio of all time, and that ring will never be his ring. And he proved it when he took Dominic out and laid him out with a 619, ran him off. So will we get the Mysterio versus Mysterio again this coming Survivor Series? It is in San Diego. I thought John Cena would get that shot. Maybe he still will. But there's now a possibility that Dominic will face Rey Mysterio at Survivor Series, maybe for the AAA championship, and Dominic pulls some double duty and defends both belts. I have no idea, but it's very interesting now. That whole segment I thought was great. Another segment that was great is Becky Lynch hopped on the announce table out of nowhere and sent a message to Maxine Dupree and challenged her. She told New Mexico, she said she's cool. The only thing cool about them is a show about how much meth they do, which was a reference to Breaking Bad. Wade Barrett had to pull up the mic. He was dying laughing. It was a very good promo. And one interesting thing, she faced off with Asuka while heading to the back, and Asuka was coming out for her tag match. So maybe a future feud between Asuka and Becky. Of course, they have history dating back multiple years. We'll have to see where that goes. As for Asuka and the Kabuki Warriors, they ended up getting what they wanted. She tapped out Lyra Valkyria to defeat Lyra and Bayley in a tag match. And of course, they have the attention now of Charlotte and Alexa, who came out, ran them off. And it was announced that they will face off for the Women's Tag Team Championships next week on Monday Night Raw. And who will win that match? I don't know. I think the Kabuki Warriors might win. I think there might be some outside interference that causes them not to win. I have no idea what's going to happen at this point. They've held the championships before, and I don't think a lot of people will complain if they hold them again. But Charlotte and Alexa have had themselves a lovely run with the Women's Tag Team Championships, and it would be a shame to see it come to an end, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens there. As for the Judgment Day, this week's edition of the Judgment Day Clubhouse, as I mentioned before, it started off with Raquel announcing that she was to face Stephanie Vaquer for the world title next week. And that was a nice moment. I think she's deserved it, and I think she's earned it. Now, Dominic, of course, at this moment, when everybody's happy, storms and upset about Rey Mysterio and what he did. Finn and JD, he wasn't happy with them for not being out there, and they, of course, weren't happy with him because they say they weren't invited to the celebration in the ring, and maybe if they had been, they would have been there to help. And Roxanne calmed him down. Liv, looming in the background as always, watching on. I think her return is now imminent. It seems that way, at least. Roxanne convinced Dom to go out there and help the boys out and try to get back their tag team championships. But unfortunately, that is not what happened. Dominic did go out there, and he did attempt to help Finn and JD reclaim the World Tag Team Championships. But an angry Sheamus stopped Dominic from, of course, legally bending the rules and not cheating. But Sheamus stopped Dominic from providing help, and I'm sure the Judgment Day are going to be, ungratefully angry at Dominic for that now, because obviously he tried to help, but it's not his fault. But they're going to put it on him anyways. But Dominic does no wrong. This is obvious. But Sheamus stopped Dominic from legally bending the rules, and your lovely tag team of AJ Lee, who hasn't been around, but AJ/Lee has been around. AJ Lee retain the World Tag Team Championships for their first defense, which is as many defenses as Finn and JD had in their last reign, and it is half the defenses that they had in their 2 reigns. So this one's already off to a significantly better start. As I mentioned with Jay, Heyman saw him backstage and was kind of working him. He was in his ear. Jay said he doesn't care what anyone has to say, and he respects CM Punk for going one-on-one with him with no tricks. Heyman said he likes this Jay with a vision of his own. Potential recruitment to the vision. Is Jay going to join the group? Is Jay going to go bad? I don't really know, but Jay is hell-bent on getting the vision down. He wants to sit them down. So that match happens later in the main event. There was a double count out that ended it. Punk and the Vision, they all grabbed chairs. Logan came out to help Punk, but Logan, of course, it was very predictable. He turned on Punk, hit him with the brass knucks, but then he handed them to Paul Heyman. Now, is he joining the Vision? Is that the right option? I don't think it is if he's full on joining the group. But if it's all a ploy for War Games, which I'm sure they've already advertised Survivor Series, they said there's going to be a War Games match. If it's for War Games, I can get behind it because Logan's going to be good in the War Games match. But I don't think he should be a full-blown member of the Vision, if that makes sense. I don't think he fits in with the group. But that was a possibility of what was to come and what happened. The Cena tournament lasts for Monday Night Raw. First 2 opening rounds were announced. First 2 opening round matches were announced for next week, that being Rusev, who has a history with John Cena, of course, to face Damian Priest, who does not have history with John Cena. And Shinsuke Nakamura is to face Sheamus. And as I mentioned before, I said perfect world. Sheamus beats John Cena for the Intercontinental Championship in his last match in Washington, D.C. Sheamus is announced for the tournament. So the dream is alive as of right now. And there's 2 more matches to be announced this Friday on SmackDown. That is it for Monday Night Raw. Now, NXT, to wrap this up. What happened on NXT following Halloween Havoc last week? Trick Williams and Ricky Saints are not done with each other. That saga continued. Trick came out, angrily stormed through production backstage outside area. He demanded another title match, claims he was the biggest star NXT has ever had to offer in that cocky persona that he's keeping up. Ricky Saints had heard enough really fast, stormed out, and they brawled before security separated them. And this went on for the entire show. Jasper Troy faced Axiom in the Speed Championship Tournament final and won. So now he, on the November 11th edition, not this week, but next week, will face El Grande Americano for the WWE Speed Championship. Sol and Zarya heats up. Sol Ruka did vacate the Women's Speed Championship to give the division a, quote, fighting champion because she said she's working on rehab, but she's not sure when she's going to be able to get back in that ring. But she dropped a line that Zarya did not like. She said she'll focus on rehab and, quote, get back the titles that she never lost. And that did not sit well with Zarya because, of course, Sol gave Zarya she gave her the power to defend that championship in her honor. Zarya obviously lost the match, but Sol said that she never lost the championship, and that obviously didn't sit right with Zarya. And Zarya angrily stormed off after Sol denied her the opportunity to defend the Speed Championship in her honor after what happened with the North American Championship. So things seem to be heating up between the two. That tournament's going to start next week. I believe this week, actually. It'll start tonight. Tonight or next week, I'm not exactly sure. But Zarya is entering, and it seems that things are starting to become more personal between the two as Sol's injury is heating up. Tatum kicked off her title reign. She said she'll be a fighting champion. She wants to create fair chances for anybody to win the championship because she felt that that's what she never had, and she wants to give others like her the opportunity to do so. Izzy Dame wasn't a fan of it. She thought that she should make people earn it, but Tatum didn't listen to her. She shuts it down. She brought back the Halloween wheel that they've used in the past to determine her first challenger. It had a bunch of names on it. She was to spin the wheel and determine who was going to fight her for the belt. That wheel landed on Lola Vice. And one thing notable about the wheel that Shawn Spears called out is that Izzy Dame was not on the wheel. And Tatum said, of course, I'm not going to fight her for the championship. We're friends. I don't think Izzy Dame was too happy about that. As for the match itself, Fatal Influence crashed the party. JC Jane was irate. It caused a no contest finish. They attacked Lola. They attacked Tatum and stood tall at the end. JC Jane clearly has her eyes still set on winning back the NXT Women's Championship. Kendall Gray had a match on NXT that we talked about last week against Lash Legend. It was her first Evolve Women's Championship defense. those two went out. They had a pretty good match. The crowd was really feeling Kendall Gray. They are fans of hers. And she ended up defeating Lash Legend to win her first title defense. Now, that begs the question, should Lash Legend be getting more? It's very confusing what WWE is doing with her because she was the second to last woman in the women's battle royal for the vacant championship at Evolution. And they put her in these big spots. She's wrestled on main roster PLEs in a tag team. She's, like I said, she's been in the final two of a women's battle royal for the world championship spot. So what are they doing with her? They don't give her anything on NXT. It begs the question, should she be getting more? A lot of people will say yes. Some people will say no. But also, should there be more for Kendall Gray? There's many people who thought she's already main roster ready, and she's only 2 years in. She's 24 years old. I don't know if that's really, I don't agree with that. I think she should do some more work in actual NXT because she is on Evolve. She hasn't even been on NXT that long. So we'll see what happens there. Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights had their match, and it was Miles Bourne that countered Tavion into a small package roll-up to pick up the win. Briggs ended up coming out, interfering, betting on commentary, and brawled Tavion down the entrance ramp after the match had ended. But Trick Williams showed back up, snuck Miles with a chair, and called out Ricky Saints again. And Ricky Saints came out and snuck Trick to continue the brawl that I said happened earlier and continued on throughout the entire show until the very end. Thea Hale summoned Joe Hendry, so he made another appearance on NXT as Ethan Page and Chelsea Green were discussing an upcoming AAA Mixed Tag Team Championship match they had. And that happened on Sunday, actually. And for the information, Chelsea Green and Ethan Page are now the AAA Mixed Tag Team Champions, which makes Ethan Page a double champion. So he joins that club of double champions in WWE. Blake Monroe had a lovely video package where she announced that her first title defense will be in Gold Rush on one of those 2 days in New York City, which I do hope to go to both days if possible. I will let you guys know if that is the case. But Blake Monroe to defend in New York City at Gold Rush, her first title defense. Who will the challenger be? There was no information on that. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. This new NXT anonymous account got Javon Evans on camera talking to Leon Slater about his state, about the tag team titles, and they set up Saquon Sugars versus Javon next week, who I found out after actually have some history on the independent scene with one another. So that should be interesting. That'll happen tonight. And in the main event, it was a knockout for the knockouts. Jordan Grace and Kalani Jordan had a match for the TNA Knockouts Championship, and Kalani actually used the belt to hold Jordan Grace, knocked her out clean, and pinned her to retain the Knockouts Championship. Finally, some depth to this character that is Kalani Jordan. She would have never done that a couple of months back, but now she has done it. She has done it with no remorse and no regret. As for the distraction itself, it was caused by, again, Trick Williams and Ricky Saints, who came and brawled out into the ring into the main event, distracted the ref multiple times, and you saw Kalani Jordan bring the championship in and hesitate to pull the trigger when the first distraction happened, but when the referee got distracted again, she thought no less, and she went after it. She knocked Jordan Grace out with the championship belt, and you can tell she didn't regret it. Whatever. She got the win. And Ava closed the show by announcing during the brawl between Ricky and Trick that on the November 11th edition of NXT, which is shaping up to be a good edition after this Jasper Troy match too, Ava announced that there will be a last man standing match for the NXT Championship on November 11th between Trick Williams and Ricky Saints, to which I beg the question, why not have that be the MSG match? What's going on here? Is Ricky Saints not going to defend on Gold Rush? Because if you have that match with Trick Williams and he wins, how do you get a new challenger in a span of just a week or two for Madison Square Garden? I don't really know what's going on there, but that is how NXT ended. And tonight we will have Tatum, Izzy, and Lola facing Fatal Influence in a 6-woman tag match. The women's speed tournament begins. Who's in it? I don't know. They haven't announced it yet. And it was not officially announced, but it seems Saquon Sugars and Javon Evans will be facing off in a one-on-one match that should be pretty fun and pretty energetic. That is it for the week. Thank you so much for listening in. We are actually on time today. I'm not rushing to finish the episode, which is beautiful. I will be back next week. We will have some stuff to talk about. Hopefully we'll have some exciting stuff to talk about. But nonetheless, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys when I see you guys. Take care.